Share screen. Actually, I'll just share this. Are you seeing this app now? Yeah?
Yep.
Okay. So let me make sure the audio is going to work here. Oh, I didn't share audio. Hold on. Okay. So this should work now. All right. So to start off with, obviously there are 4 of these things that are identical, right? And so the concept here is that you're combining 4 sounds together to make something interesting. Now there's just a million ways you could use this thing. In fact, that's kind of how I like it. I want things to be diverse. So I want my applications to kind of be really flexible. And so there's a lot of different ways you can do things. Like I use this sometimes to generate hi-hat patterns because I randomize the pattern over here or do some other different things. It just depends on what I'm doing. But first of all, it's all sample based, right? So you have to drag a sample in here to get anything to do anything.
Okay.
And there are actually 2 ways of doing that. First of all, you can just drag and drop a sample into this big window, right? So you can drag or drop a sample in there, or you can click this library button. And actually, this can be really useful depending on what you're doing. And choose a folder, and then that folder populates all of these windows. See this?
Okay.
So then the little drag down thing will give you all of those sounds that are in that folder.
Gotcha. So it's like a bank.
Yeah, that can be really nice, especially, you know, I haven't performed with this project, but my Pink machine that I use, that is really useful because of those populated folders. So because I perform live with that application, I drag and drop audio, you know, I create a folder for a piece that I write in Pink, and then I can play it live and it will choose the right audio files because the folder is chosen.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that works pretty well. And then, so once these are populated, basically what's happening is if I hit play, which is the space bar, first of all, I have to turn it on, which is right here. This will be gray and I have to turn it on, okay? Now, if I need to set up my audio inputs and outputs, I click on this configure DSP button, and then you can see the inputs and outputs are here. Okay, really important too is that you turn these 2 buttons on that say scheduler and overdrive and audio interrupt. That prioritizes rhythm over anything so that to basically prevent rhythmic errors. Instead, it would do something else. It would like slow down a file loading or something to make rhythm stay tight.
Okay.
So you want to have those turned on.
Wait, where were those inputs?
So under configure DSP, right, which is right under the speaker. Can see where my cursor is?
Yeah.
So it's right in there. You click that, it's a button, and then it opens this window.
Okay, I think it's only showing the reactor screen, so I think it's not showing both windows.
Okay.
But I get it.
Well, let me just share my desktop instead. That should fix that. There. Now you can see it?
Yep.
Yeah. So when you click on this configure DSP, this window pops up, and then audio. Here's your audio inputs and outputs, and here's your scheduler and overdrive and audio interrupt. Okay, which are really important to turn on again because it prioritizes meter. So that you don't get weird rhythmic things when the CPU starts to work.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so then I can close this out. So I'm basically ready to go now. And what I need to do is to load sounds in here, which I've done. I've just picked these. These are totally random. In fact, this folder is from a piece from Pink that I wrote in my Pink machine. So it's just audio files from that. So first of all, what's happening is when you hit the space bar, if I turn pattern off to rhythmic values, okay, whatever I have chosen here in rhythmic values, so usually this random's off, and I'll set all this. I don't know if this is all set or not, but if the randomizer is turned off, which is the little R, anytime you see an R anywhere, it means it's going to randomize that value. So it's something I love actually, and I do it all the time to make constant variation and stuff. And I'll talk about that a little bit. But the default here is that rhythmic values are on, and then literally like you're choosing quarter notes, eighth notes, half notes, whatever. And my tempo is right here. So when I hit the space bar, it's going to start playing. It's going to play an event every beat, every quarter note, right? So a little bit weird right now, but so yeah, so it is playing now an event every beat, and you know what you can use this however you want, but one of the cool things about the rhythm here is that I can also actually, if I turn random on and I select like just these top three, what it's going to do is it's going to randomize between 16th, eighths, and quarters.
Okay.
So the first one will now, you know, if the first one is the only one that's on, if I turn off the other three, it's basically creating a rhythmic pattern with quarters, eighths, and 16ths. And if I wanted, for instance, only eighths and quarters, I could just select those two. So then it's going to randomly choose those values, right? So you can pick whatever you want. If I turn on rhythmic values, what I can do then is actually turn on specific notes. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, right? So now it's playing that pattern, right? This pattern right here instead. So I usually have rhythmic values on, but you can do whatever you want. You know, most of the time for me, what I'm doing is trying to isolate an individual moment that I'm going to then use later, like I showed you the other day, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm creating rhythmic stuff, but most of the time I'm trying to create these isolated moments. And so what I'll do, like I did then, is like put the tempo at something ridiculous, like 30, right? And then choose a half note or a whole note or something. And then literally you get one moment every, right? I mean, there's some. So the delay, you know, don't be fooled by this. There's a lot of delay on here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's actually repeating. Here are the events, right? Oh, the randomizer's on here. Now it's really doing it. Like tempo is 30 and it's playing these individual events. I might put this on the half note so that they play a little more often. So anyways, and then obviously I'm going to record that for a long time. So let's go on and talk about here. So there's a reverb and there's a pan, and those can be, of course, randomized or not. So I could turn on the reverb randomizer, which means that, you know, it's going to change the random. Every time it hits, it's going to generate from a new random number. Which works fine. And then, so the grain length, this is related to how long the sample is. And actually this little parameter is really interesting because if I click one time, it's going to set the grain length to a specific thing. And this is in milliseconds. So I just set that to one thing. Now every grain that's going to play is going to be 748 milliseconds in length. Almost 1 second, basically 3/4 of a second, right? 750 would be 3/4 of a second. If I make a range like this, then it's going to randomize every time it hits the length of the grain. Okay, so you can see it change every time here. It's because, let me turn this up a little bit, 60. So when there's a range set, it's going to randomize in range. And I think the longest possible length is 3 seconds or something like that, which is pretty long. But you can randomize how long these are or you can click one time and set it to a specific size. Okay.
Okay. And that's the length of the audio file?
Yes, it's not the length of the audio file, it's the length of the audio file that's going to play. So if the audio file is 5,000 milliseconds, it's only going to play 648 milliseconds long.
Yeah.
So
okay.
you can make really, for instance, you can make really short grains. If you click right here at the beginning, every one is going to be really tiny, right? So that's the biggest difference there. So, you know, to have randomized values here is cool because you end up with like a bunch of different, you know, if you're doing, for instance, hi-hat generating here, which is really cool, you can have a random length and it'll kind of do different stuff to make it randomize it, right? So these are all still pretty short. But if I have one that's really long or one that's really possibly really long, listen to what you get.
You got good folks.
Right? So sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter, right? Because of the randomizing length, the grain length. So, you know, I mean, something like this too, like it's just going to take you a fair amount of time, like just messing around with it, right? To really get the hang of it and get like cool things coming out of it. But once you get the hang of how it works, I've generated a lot of beautiful stuff with it. So, and I can show you some examples of what I would do with it. So let's go onto the middle here. This is pretty simple, obviously. Delay. So there's a feedback amount button here, which is how much it's feeding back into the delay. So, and then you can randomize the amount of delay. This is the outside is the amount of delay. The inside slider is how much delay is going to reverb also.
Oh, okay.
Right. So my feedback's really high. So, and then this main reverb here, or R here, is for the values. So this is the left side, and this is the right side. Okay? So if I wanted to, you know, your delay can be constantly evolving, basically, which is pretty cool. Now the feedback's high, so it's playing constantly. But your classic ADSR down here, right? So if you wanted to smooth out the sounds a little bit, you could do that by adding some attack, right? So that it's kind of more ramped, obviously. And then the big thing here is the pitch. So this is the most kind of dynamic thing that you've got. The pitch is based off of what's called transposition, Max. The number one in the so this, first of all, this transposition window thing is exactly the same as the grain length in terms of functionality, right? If I click one time, it's going to set the transposition. If I make a range, it's going to randomize every time, okay? And let me find an actual note here of something. So let me find, hold on. Let me turn this down. Okay, that's good. So one thing to remember too is that this transposition is based on whatever the note is that you put in here. Okay, so say you put a G in here, G is going to be 1. And then if it changes to other notes, like if it goes to 0.5, that's going to be the G below. But if you throw a C in there, C is 1. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
1 is like normal speed of the audio file.
Okay.
So if you're trying to tune things, you have to really be aware of that. Like it will, you know, do some interesting stuff. Let me grab the same sound here. Turn this one on. Actually, let me pick the same note. Okay. Man, I wish I could zoom in so you could see this better. But if I do, for instance, if I go to random frequency here, then the range is literally going to randomize the frequency nonstop. So if I put this at 200 eighth notes, okay. Obviously that is literally going to play cacophony like any random frequency possible. If you
Yeah.
pick chromatic, that's going to actually only play the notes on the piano, right?
Okay.
Because there's lots of frequencies between the notes on the piano. But in this case, it's going to play just the notes on the piano, for instance. But then there's lots of stuff like one of my favorites is fifths and octaves. So what this is going to do is only play fifths and octaves from the original pitch. Right? So that's really cool.
Yeah.
If I go in here and choose, some of these will default into, well, some of them are scales. So if I hit minor scale, now it's going to play notes based off of G or whatever. I don't even know what that note is. Whatever that note is, a minor scale from there. So it can literally be any note inside a minor scale. Okay, same thing with a major scale. If I click on that one. So, but then if I go in here and choose something like natural minor chords, okay,
Mm-hmm.
that makes these chord buttons work. And what happens is now when I press, for instance, 1, it's going to play the 1 chord. So if it's a G, it's going to play G, B flat, and D, and so forth. Find a sample that's a little more pitch defined. I'm trying to remember what these are. These plucks. Those are way undefined. Strings. Yeah, I don't know. I can't really find. That's really all I've got in terms of defined pitch.
I think you're still in that one library, right?
Yeah, but I could just go and grab a sample. So like, actually a really good example, C, piano. Hey, there we go. Let me grab this. This is just an A on the, or actually it's a C on the piano. Oh, so there's also some effects going on here. Let me turn that off. So 1 chord, 3 chord. Then 1, right? So it will basically randomize, and if I have 2 of these, so, and the cool thing now is that the range is going to give me the pitch. So if I change this also to natural minor chords, which it is.
You could have different levels of the chords.
Yeah, so the second one's going to play low notes. The upper one's going to play upper notes.
Gotcha.
Pretty cool. And I can change the chords. Up here is the global chord changer. So if I want to change all of them at once, you see what's happening?
Yeah.
So this allows me to change the chords like that on there, right?
Okay, so it's sort of like the one up above is like the master for all the ones underneath.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so I can control them all at once. So if I'm really trying to make a chord progression out of audio files, I can play them all at the same time.
Gotcha. No, yeah, this is really like I don't know how I haven't like found something like this, or I haven't tried to like operate something like this. I don't know if you can do this with any stock plugins in Logic, because I mean I can't think of anything because
No,
Probably
I can't.
no.
No, I can't think of anything either. I mean, there's some, there's a lot of wacky Macs for live plugins that are so and those are. But no, I can't think of anything that really does this, especially the chord progression stuff. That is just really very powerful, actually, to this stuff here.
Yeah.
The cool thing too is I have this. I can also play a MIDI keyboard. So I don't have a MIDI keyboard plugged in. I can plug one in now. So if I click on, there's the random button or the keyboard button, and now it's basically I'm playing a MIDI keyboard like a piano, right? So if I change these rhythmic values to pattern, oh sorry. So anyway, so yeah, it's just like playing a random. Now it's playing the patterns, and I can play a keyboard, right?
Mhm.
What else is in there? I think that's it. There's like some funkier scales like pentatonic and whole tone. There's a Phrygian dominant scale, which is really cool.
The most useful of scales.
Yeah. So anyways, another thing that's happening too is that it is random. So if I hit this random button, it's going to play the notes in order instead of playing them randomly, which is kind of interesting. Also, so if we go over now to the display window here, there are a couple options here. So right now, what's happening is it's playing anywhere inside this region that's selected, okay? But if I hit it one time, it's now going to always play from the beginning of that pitch. So for instance, and if I turn the random on, watch what it does. It's basically always moving around. So this can't, I mean, in this case, there's a lot of empty space in this track, in this sound. So there's a fair amount of nothing, right? But if you had a different audio file like this one down here, it might. So that's actually kind of a cool sound. And if you turned on the delay and I did some rhythmic stuff with this.
Yeah.
Pretty neat, right? So that's just using one of them. And then, I can go into this library. Oh, sorry, not that. Let me go in here and see. I think I have a hi-hat. Here's a hi-hat. So this is just a single hi-hat sound. If I select all of the audio, it's going to randomize inside that audio file. This is really great for hi-hats because you can randomize the pitch of them, right, with the random frequency, make kind of a tight range in the middle here, set the random values and make it like, eighths and sixteenths only. I need to fix this thing down here at some point. I need to do that, but it's actually not playing the way I want it to. Well, just listen to this one. It's like literally making its own hi-hats.
Yeah, that's so cool, actually.
And they're really dynamic. Yeah, they're always changing. There's sometimes right, and because of the pitch change, it's like a really, it's pretty neat. Does it?
Yeah, I'm thinking like that because like earlier you were telling me well, not earlier, it was like when I showed you the my the first songs I sent you, where you asked me to like layer hi-hats to create like a more of an articulate sound. Like that sounds like something you could do in here and like just.
Oh yeah. Well, and the thing is, it's easy, right? Like I don't spend hours and hours like trying to manipulate every sound to be unique. It's like you just let the machine do the randomizing for you, right?
Right.
And that's kind of why I invented it or made it partly is I just love the variation. So here's another hi-hat sound. You know, I can combine two hi-hats together. That's weird. See what we get here. So at a really short value, it's randomizing pitches 2. Oh, let me turn these chords off here. We'll go to chromatic. So now I have 2 at once, right? I can also turn random off. Yeah, so I'm really dynamic. My panning, see my panning knobs going nuts, right? They're like,
Yeah.
So they're generating this kind of beautiful panning. I don't know if you're hearing that panning. But yeah, I don't know why I don't use this more, to be honest.
It's honestly really cool. And like I'm sort of like trying to think of it in like ways of like percussion and like because when you were chopping up that one I think it was like a synth sample, that sort of gave me an idea where like I can throw in like an audio file with like say something I sang in and then have that cut in different spots and like create really cool rhythms out of it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and then there's also, so in here, there's also some effects. There's this one called Artifacts, which kind of adds some weird inflection on stuff. There's also a tremolo one, and then there's a randomizer at the bottom of both of these, which will turn them on and off as it plays. And then the 50% in here, if you turn this up, the chances of it being on go up to 80% or whatever. So this is basically probability, this slider here.
Gotcha.
And then there's also a filter. So you can literally like put in, you know, like a low pass filter, you know, and you can actually grab this and kind of, I think you can change it, edit it a little bit, maybe not. I can lift that line. But anyways, I can turn the randomizer on. And it's literally going to randomize the filter. You probably won't hear that much with this sample, but you could hear it. You'd probably hear a lot more if it was a different thing. Let me grab a different sound here. That's really cool. So yeah, so in the end, I have to get out of here in a second. But what you have to do is, in order to get this into Ableton or Logic, you have to record it, right? So it's just like my drum machine. I don't remember if you remember using that, but you literally have to go first. That's the thing. You have to save first. Oh, one other thing before I get to that. You can also randomize the volumes of these. So watch this. If I turn this range up and I hit randomize on, watch the volume slider. Right? So it's just another element of randomizing. Like it could literally randomize the volume of every single hit just to make it another thing that makes it dynamic. Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, so that's about it. This also allows you to save some presets in here, but you probably won't need that. And then, yeah, here's your tempo. There is a 3/4 time setting, but I'm not really sure this works very well. I don't think I've explored that much at all.
Thank you.
The space bar turns it off and on. That's it. That's about it. So, and yeah, your main outputs are here. So obviously you want to keep it from clipping, right? And then how you record is I hit save first. And then I go to where I want to save. So I might call this sound one. I'm on the desktop, I hit save. And then while it's playing, when I hit record, now it's recording what Max is doing.
So you do that after you save it?
Yeah, so you're basically allocating the file to a specific place, and then you're writing to that file.
Gotcha.
And then when you're done, you have to stop recording. If you don't stop the recording process, it doesn't finish writing the file, and it won't work. So don't forget to turn off to finish recording process.
Okay.
And then on my desktop, I should have a file called sound one. There it is, right? So, you know, the easiest thing to do is to set it to, you know, you set your tempo to the same tempo as your project in Logic, and then you can literally drag and drop and it'll line up perfectly, right?
That's honest. That's wicked cool.
Yeah. So, you know, what I tend to use it a lot for is to generate rhythmic elements like just like this. Or as I said, I do things where I want it to make cool, unique moments, right? That I then try and find one and use in a piece. So that's what I usually use it for, actually. So I'm often going into these sample packs and like grabbing a loop of some kind. These are all really terrible. And then, you know, like I'll just kind of again, I'll set the tempo really low so that each event is isolated by itself, right? So when I record it, I get lots of variation, right? Or when I record it, I get a lot of space between the sounds. So I'll probably turn all this off, set it to whole notes, turn off the randomizers, set it to whole notes, and then do this, right? See, that's a little too long. It's gonna take forever, maybe 60. But it's generating now, you know, these moments. You just never know what's gonna happen, right?
Yeah.
So you can end up with some really cool things. So, you know, another thing to do too is like I could take this piano A. Where is that? So if I drag this to every track, and I set these once, I'm going to set these once to start at the beginning of this file. Or I can set the range. I could actually just choose the entire audio right there where the sound is. And then it's going to randomize inside that moment, right? And I could set all these to, for instance, Phrygian dominant. I mean, whatever, Phrygian dominant. And then change, you know, set their ranges to something, and then just, you know, basically it's going to play a chord every time. Or actually, in this case, it's always playing the one chord, right? So if I do 120, so, you know, I mean, I'm going to get a variation every single time it hits, right? It's never going to be the same twice, which, you know, I like. So
Yeah.
anyway, so that's how it works. And it's almost uploaded, it looks like. 8 minutes left, it says, but
And that's both of them, right?
Yeah, machine is in that folder too. So
okay. Yeah, because I looked at that. I mean, I know you're doing a video on it. It's just it's its own drum machine, right?
yeah, I can pull that one up too and just talk about it briefly. Close this.
Yeah, I love anything that's not a Logic drum machine.
Yeah. So similarly with this, if you pull up the library, you can add a folder. So I'll go, let me just go to that same folder, Max Projects, sure, pink piece. And then these are all your audio files. So if I do bass, whatever, kick drum, I could do punchy kick drum, whatever's green here. So see this swap button? It's actually awesome because it allows you to instantly change the file to something else. So if I have, for instance, kick drum there, and then you'll see swap, see what it does? It swaps the audio file with whatever is in the other blank. And then, yeah, so I got to go through here. Let me, choose a, I don't know, I have a bunch of these servo noises. That's what I used in a piece I wrote. So, and then, yeah, you literally go through here, you make patterns, right? I turn on the DSP, which is configure DSP, that pops up again. This, you really have to have the scheduler and overdrive and audio interrupt because the rhythm will get all messed up if you don't.
Okay.
So, and then, and this thing's a monster because on top of it, if you hit Shift S, it has a whole nother step sequencer inside it.
Okay.
Yeah, and this basically can be run in conjunction with the other rhythm. So I use both of them basically a lot of the time. But if I turn that one off, I can select a moment in the audio file. And then, yeah, it's just going to literally play through. And if I go to, here's my closed hi-hat. And you can see that hi-hat right now is set to randomize. So every time it goes to the end of the line and goes back to the beginning, it starts over with a new pattern. Okay? But if you look down here where the effects controls are, you can see it's very similar, right? There's still the random patterns here. So for transposition, and I can choose the range of my transposition. I can also choose whether it's polyphonic or monophonic. So monophonic means that, the notes will never overlap, right? I can also open up another effects panel that has some really cool little effects in it, like these filters. So to turn the filter on, if I set this to whole notes, you can hear now that drum is filtering, this drum here. There's an overdrive and a delay button. So anyways, you can build basically another, a big old thing here, but you actually are creating drum patterns, right? There are 8 levels. The last one you can see is a triplet. This one these are 16th notes, right? These are 8th notes, and then a quarter note at the bottom, right? Your tempo is right here. It says 120, and I can change that. I have my master chord controllers here. There's also a big filter for everything. So this is going to actually filter out the entire mix. This master filter. I can change my delays. It's a monster. And then in here, this is just a whole nother bank of stuff that I can do. If I just add and drop audio files in here, or I can pull up another library and do the same again. And once again.
Now you got a good folk song, I'm ready to pay you top dollar. But it's got to be authentic, Dad. I got enough of those jokers back home writing phonies.
So these can be as
No.
long as you want too. Like, so, but that's just another one. You know, I mean, I wrote a big piece in this, which is on my SoundCloud a couple of years ago. Anyways, I don't know. So yeah, I mean, I do need to do a whole video on this though, because my freshman class is probably going to be using this to make some drum beats.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be cool. I'll definitely check that out. And
Yeah.
I'm just gonna play around with this, of just a bunch.
Yeah, it's where are we at here? It says 6 minutes left on the upload, so hopefully they work. Let me know if they do work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me stop recording here. Stop sharing. Oh, it'll actually, yeah.